If you happen to be like me and you're newer to professional wrestling, one of the most interesting things when you're learning the product and you're really getting into it is learning all of the weird rules, the rules that you're not used to because you're used to watching more traditional sports or just anything non-combat. It can be weird watching through a match and being like, wait, why is the ref counting right now? Why is he in trouble? And while it has been fun learning all of these little rules, I threw out the question to you guys over on X and on a YouTube post. I wanted to know what rule you guys might add, remove, or change from the current day WWE. I said this could be anything. You could alter a current rule, you can bring a rule back, you can get rid of one, it could be a match stipulation. I left it pretty open, and the interesting thing was a lot of you said the same thing, and we'll get to that, but a lot of you actually all gravitated toward the same change, and I think it says something. And if you're not new here, then you already know that I like throwing questions to you guys at the beginning of the video, something to work on while I'm talking, and then I like to go through the comments and interact with you guys on it. So if you didn't see the post before, now is your chance to discuss it a little bit. Throw a comment down below on what rule you would change, what change, or just a brand new rule. It could be a new stipulation. You can get totally creative with it, no limitations. So let's see what you come up with. I'll be down in the comments to read them. First up, we have Shy Guy Works. The first challenger of a new champion must always be someone else entirely and not the previous champion. If a champion retains, then the next challenger needs to be different. Okay, so does that mean that you don't want rematches? Do you not want the rematch clause? Because it sounds like what you're saying is anytime somebody wins a championship from someone, you don't want there to be a rematch for that. You want that person to always go to the back of the line after they lost their title. If that's what you're saying, I don't think I'm with you. I really do like rematches, and I don't want to talk too much about rematch clauses because some of you guys brought it up, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. Although I will say that once they start a new trilogy against certain wrestlers, I don't always love seeing the same wrestler get like 3 pay-per-views or 3 PLEs in a row. I think that kind of gets old for me unless it's got a lot of heat behind it. Like right now, I feel like you could justify Drew and CM Punk getting something that would span over multiple PLEs, but then you got something like AJ Styles versus Cody where now it's gone over 2 different PLEs, and while it has been good, while I've enjoyed the matches, I just don't see why it needed to be multiple different PLEs. I feel like you could have done a lot of what we got in a single match. Gene says there's no reason for the ref to count when both people are down. If it's not last man standing, I don't see the point. We all know it will never end in a double count like that. Okay, but what if it did? Maybe the real problem isn't a rule change here, maybe, or a removal of the rule. Maybe it's in the writing. Maybe we need to see some random matches end in these weird ways. Think of all the ways that matches never end, but they always start counting to allude that it could end that way. Think of when someone is being held against the ropes in the corner. The ref has what? It's a 5 count, I believe. And they go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they always break it up. It doesn't need to be often, but once in a while, what if you have someone mess up and lose like that? At least then you're setting the precedent for us, the viewer, that it could go like that. You know what I mean? If it never happens under any circumstances, then yeah, I'm with you. It feels totally pointless. They shouldn't even be counting. But if you throw in a random match like you're talking about, where neither get up in 10 seconds, it doesn't need to be a big match at a PLE. But even if you throw it in a few mid-card matches or even a random opener or main event, just to remind people that it could happen, then going forward, every time that count starts, you think, okay, maybe. Flutax says, this isn't something I would probably want permanently, but I love the idea of multi-man matches, triple threats, fatal 4-ways, etc. to be elimination style matches. Have the last 2 face off after they pinned everyone else. Could make for some insane moments and spots. I'm with you. It does seem like the only match that I can think of that does work in the style of elimination is Elimination Chamber. And if you follow me on Twitch, by the way, you should go follow on Twitch. We have our own universe mode over there of all like their subscribers and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. But we actually have made some custom matches to do pretty much what you're saying, to have these matches where it's like a fatal 4-way, and when someone gets pinned, it's down to the other 3, and then all the way until there's one person standing. I agree. I think that would be pretty cool in matches that aren't the Elimination Chamber. You could make the argument that that's what makes the Elimination Chamber special, but I wouldn't even go that far. I would say that it would be pretty cool if you could get some pretty intense matches that are pure elimination style. Actually, a really fun one that we have over on the Twitch channel is we do a table elimination match. So it'll be 4 wrestlers, and if you get thrown through a table, you're eliminated, and then it's the last person standing. So multiple people have to keep getting thrown through tables until one person's left. It's pretty cool. Curry for Life says, I would like for the WWE to reinforce the 30-day title defense rule, where a champion must defend his or her champion in a span of 30 days. And if they didn't meet that, their reign would be vacated. It would basically be impossible with Roman as champion, but now I would love to see it. I'm with you kind of. 30 days feels like a tough window, because I'm not someone who is totally against part-time wrestlers. I get that you're going to have some superstars like Logan Paul. Let's just bring up Logan Paul for a second. I know some of you don't like Logan Paul, but the reality is, pretend it's not Logan Paul. Pretend it's the exact same wrestler with a different real life persona. Someone who is very popular on social media, somebody who brings a lot of eyes to the product. I get why making someone like that a part-timer champion is going to be very beneficial, and it's the only thing that's going to hurt is, yeah, you're not going to see him every week. You're not going to see him defending all the time. So 30 days feels like you're going to be putting a rush on things, and then you're going to get some matches that are kind of rushed just to meet the 30 days. If it was somewhere like, if it was like a 30 to 90 day, or if it had to be, you had to defend it every other PLE or something like that, I'm with you. I like the idea of a limit, because I feel like that could be played into a story and be interesting and not just feel like an arbitrary limit. Maybe instead of going so far as to saying they vacate it, maybe you say if they don't defend within a certain amount of time, it's an automatic open challenge. This way, you're not really putting someone in a situation where like, oh, well, it's vacated. They would have to be vacated, because you know they're not going to want to do that, especially for a big name. So, and then you don't have to force them into a match really quick. But you could have them intentionally do it for a story if it was only going to lead to a random challenge. So maybe, let's say it's like LA Knight, and maybe it's in the early days of LA Knight where you wouldn't really be able to justify him versus Logan Paul. Just play along for the sake of the scenario. Say Logan Paul doesn't defend within the 30 or 60 days or whatever we say. So instantly Adam Pearce or whoever announces that it has been automatic open challenge, first one to claim it. That gives you a window of anybody who may not normally be in the conversation for this title to just try to snag one. And maybe, who knows, maybe it would be cool to see them steal a title or something. You know what I mean? I like the idea of changing rules so that it opens up opportunity for stories, not so much ones that restrict it to where you have to follow a certain guideline. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but I have a Patreon with free and paid content, so you should at least go look at the free content and see if the rest might be for you. Back to the video. Gary says, not really a rule change, but kind of a reinforcement of an existing rule. There should be a definitive guideline for rematch clauses. I feel like lately people haven't been getting their clauses after losing their title. You know, we just talked about this. I did a video with Santi a few weeks ago, and I did bring up the idea of rematch clauses, and it sounds like it's just something that doesn't get done anymore. It sounds like it's only when it's convenient. We saw Becky do it against Liv, saying she had a rematch clause. I agree. I think it would be really cool if there was some way that we could know in their contract if they have some sort of a rematch clause. Maybe not every wrestler needs it, or maybe you earn a rematch clause after defending a title for X amount of days. Something measurable that we as a fan can track, but something that doesn't restrict the WWE to have to go down paths that wouldn't be that interesting. Like, let's face it, just saying that everybody gets a rematch clause, that could force you into a rematch that maybe wasn't very good. Like, I'm sure there's been plenty of times where you've had a match hyped up that's going to be a big title match, and they move the title because that was the plan, but the match wasn't great. Now, if you have an automatic for sure rematch clause, now we have to sit through that match again, and they're probably just going to shove it on Monday Night Raw just to get it out of the way. Cyber Saiyan says, get rid of the escape to win stipulation from cage matches. You know, I first read that and I was kind of with you, but I feel like escaping the steel cage is kind of a very easy to go to heel way of winning so that you can kind of protect your babyface. Now, this is kind of what I was saying a little bit ago, is I'm not a huge fan of rules that restrict. The beauty of the WWE is that it is scripted. So when you have all these open-ended rules, it leaves room for the writer to find some crazy way to utilize it, or find some way to have a wrestler, you know, find a loophole. But one thing I will say, and I did see somebody else suggested this at some point in one of my posts, I would be cool with getting rid of the door as a way to exit. I think having to climb over leads to the possibility of those fights that happen on top of the cage, which can be pretty exciting. If you remember, I remember Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus had a really good match, and it ended with a big spot from the top of the cage, which was only created with the idea of one of them trying to escape. But yeah, there's not a lot to get excited about with someone trying to walk out the side door to win. So I'll compromise. I'll say remove escape to win through the door, but keep it over the cage. It just opens up too many fun moments. Brendan says, it's not a rule, but I would like to see intergender wrestling. They have the talent for it. First of all, I've noticed a lot of people on these posts, if you go look at it yourself, a lot of people said, well, it's not a rule, but so it's almost like people end up using these posts as like a way just to make a change to the WWE, which is fine. Discussion is discussion. It's fun. But actually, I have a question about this. Intergender wrestling. What's up with that? I've noticed that you can't do it in the video game, but you can do it in the AEW video game. So that kind of implies that it's just a decision being made by the WWE, and maybe it's more common in other places. I'm not really going to give an opinion on this, because as much as I understand they don't want to show men hitting women on TV, I feel like there is some sort of middle ground there where you do see a little bit of it. So I wonder what exactly is the line, and why exactly can't you have a match between the two of them? From what I understand, I've been told that in the past, I believe, was it China that participated in some men's matches? So I don't know if it's happened since then, but yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm open to the idea, but if somebody gives me a serious reason of why they don't do it anymore or something like that, then, you know, I'm totally open to it. Remember, I'm still learning. Tyra says, titles should have to be defended at least every 30 to 60 days, all of them. Okay, I know we kind of already talked about this, but I added it because you added the 60 days. So I think you and I are a little more on the same page. I would like a wider window, but yeah, I agree there should be a hard limit with some sort of a consequence. I don't think the consequence needs to be a vacate, but some sort of a consequence that can be interesting. A vacate isn't really interesting, so that's probably why they're never going to enforce that, because that's just not good TV, in my opinion. No one loved seeing Rhea have to vacate her title. That bummed a lot of people out. But imagine a heel refusing to defend their title, and I don't know, the forced open challenge could be really interesting against a heel. Charlie says, wrestlers should have a maximum of 3 rope breaks per match. Would make matches with submission-based wrestlers more tense, with their opponent having to find more creative ways out than just getting to the ropes every time. I like that. I like the idea of a limit of rope breaks or anything that would be used to get out of a pin other than kicking out or tapping out. That would make you kind of think, even if you're close to the ropes, if you have the strength to break out of it. You know, obviously this would all be in the character's kayfabe, but it would have to, the wrestler would have to decide, do I want to just grab the rope really quick, or do I think I can get out of this? I don't think I need to grab the rope right now. And then you could also strategize it the other way, where the person who is doing the submission could almost try to bait the early rope breaks. You know what I mean? Like kind of intentionally do it near the ropes and hope that they grab it. I think there's potential to do something creative there. So yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, like I says, not a super interesting idea, but I would prefer if multi-man championship matches had elimination rules instead of just one fall. I agree. No, don't say that's not interesting. I think that's interesting. I kind of love the idea. I'm not saying this needs to be the standard, but I love the idea. Like we talked about elimination matches earlier, but I especially love it for a title. I love the idea that you would have to defeat the current champion. The current champion would have to be defeated in a fatal 4-way or 5-way or a triple threat in order to lose it in these elimination style title matches. I think that would be extremely cool. Optilium says, we need elimination war games. Last team standing wins. We've been talking a lot about eliminations at this point, and I wanted to throw this in there because I really wish you could do this in 2K. Optilium, I have tried doing that in the game. Unfortunately, you can't, but damn, it would be cool in real life if they did a elimination war games where they come in one by one, and then once it starts, it's keep going until the sides are eliminated, which in a video game would be incredibly unfair. Once one is eliminated, the other one's going to have a massive advantage, but in real real professional wrestling, the script can say the most interesting comeback story happens. Imagine a team gets wiped, but then the other team gets all cocky. It's classic tortoise in the hairstyle, where the other team gets all cocky and plays around. They play with their food a little bit too much, and the one person remaining sneaks a pin. Now it's 3v1, and they're like, hey, go finish him off. And then they do one more. He catches him in an armbar, and he catches the the cowardly heel from the team, and he quickly taps out. Now it's just a 2v1, and then you never know what could happen from there. So I like it. I feel like these elimination style matches create a lot of opportunity just for really cool storytelling. Ooh, here we go. G-Rez says, a ref cannot physically break up two legal people in the ring. The ref's job is to officiate. If they get to a count of 4 after a rope break is called, I don't want to see them grab the person doing a submission and drag them away. I want them to do their job and count the DQ. As a side note of this, there should be a consequence to losing by DQ / disrespecting a referee. We have a vague concept that a winner of a match gets paid more. I didn't know that. And that if you put your hands on a referee that you can get fined, but there should be consequences that we can see. Someone who's recently been disqualified cannot get booked in a main event match, their upcoming title opportunity gets revoked, or they lose manager privileges. Okay, so generally on this, what I'm gonna take from this, the part that I'm gonna pull from it that I think is really interesting, is the idea of visual and measurable consequences long-term, other than just they were fined, stuff that we can't see. I do think you can get really creative with that, maybe limiting them in certain ways or forcing them into matches they wouldn't otherwise want to do. But I do think it would be cool that if you lost by DQ, yeah, there is some sort of effect by being disqualified and ending the match in a disqualification or hurting the ref or doing something. I don't really have any ideas for it. If you guys have any, I'm just kind of trying to come up with it on the top of my head. But if anybody has any ideas for that, of what would be some sort of a punishment that we could see that could be implemented on a wrestler for breaking some in-ring rules, like of just being disqualified, other than just losing the match. I'm not saying it would need to happen for every disqualification, but if there were some that were over the line, I think you could get pretty interesting on that. Brian says title matches should be 2 of 3 falls. That would be kind of cool, but if you think about it, how do most titled 2 out of 3 falls matches go? It almost always makes it to the 3rd fall. So if that point, I'm not someone who thinks predictability in the match is a big deal, but usually what I mean by that is the result. I don't really care if I know the result, but if I know pretty confidently that every title match would have, the challenger is going to get one, the defender is going to get the next one, and then it's going to come down to the last one. Well, at that point, you might as well just do the 1 fall then instead of the 2 of 3 falls. But I do like the idea of doing it once in a while. I think 2 of 3 fall matches are pretty cool. Drew says, stop making every match that's not a singles match a no disqualification. I hate that change. I'd actually like to see the count out and the disqualification get used more instead of everything being either a clean win or a clean win off distraction. You say you hate that change. Did that not used to be like that? Did there used to be like triple threats that had disqualifications? So I don't know. Those of you who don't know, I've been watching since WrestleMania 39. So if it seems like I don't know what I'm talking about sometimes, it's totally true. But the main reason I added this one is because I actually wanted to ask Drew or anyone else, I guess, what your preference would be. But if you added DQ to multi-man matches, or sorry, like 3, 4, 5-man matches, would a DQ end the match? Or do you think if you DQ, you are then removed? Now, this doesn't mean that they all have to be elimination style matches, but I could see it being the first 2 get a fall wins while still having a DQ be something that removes you from the match. But then what if somebody's interfering from the outside and they hit someone who I guess you have to make assumptions of who they're affiliated with. That could get kind of messy, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of see why DQs in group matches aren't there. It seems like it could get a little bit overcomplicated a little bit. Remove anyone with the name Logan Paul. That feels a little bit personal. If you didn't catch it at the beginning of the video, throw down whatever you think your rule change would be, or maybe a brand new rule. Come up with a brand new match stipulation. I'm actually really excited to read these ones because some of you get really creative with these kinds of things. Thank you to the patrons who are flying up the screen. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking the video and subscribing. I will see you guys in the next one.